you ever felt like you're drowning in information, articles piling up, research papers everywhere, and data just flooding in, trying to figure out what actually matters?
Oh, absolutely. It's overwhelming sometimes, isn't it? The challenge is never running out of information, but deciding what's important.
Exactly. So today, we're going to dive into a book that helps cut through that noise and make sense of this world. We're talking about Jana G.M. Van Dyke's The Network Society, Social Aspects of New Media, written in 2005.
Yeah, it's an eye-opener. The book was written more than 15 years ago, but it provides such a solid, fact-based look at how everything was changing.
Right? Especially back then, new media and emerging networks were reshaping society. That was when everything started to get interconnected, and you can really trace a lot of the changes we see today back to this point.
Definitely. It was like the world was suddenly opening up in a whole new way. And that's where Van Dyke's insights come in. He lays out the groundwork for understanding our current connected world.
And that's what we want to help our listeners with today. We're cutting through the noise and pulling out the essential points from this text, especially for people navigating higher education or advanced learning.
Exactly. It's about understanding the why behind the network society, how it affects your learning, the skills you'll need, and your role in this knowledge economy that's constantly evolving.
Yeah, think of this as a shortcut to really grasp the big challenges and opportunities that come with being part of this connected world.
So, where do we start? The first thing Van Dyke paints is a picture of a transformed world, right? A world that's globally connected.
Absolutely. Media, social networks, economic networks, they reach everywhere now. The scale is insane.
And it happened so quickly, especially in places like China and India. They went from largely pre-industrial societies to industrial mass societies, and then, almost overnight, into these post-industrial network societies.
It's mind-blowing. So, what was driving all this?
It was the rapid spread of technologies like satellite TV, mobile phones, and, of course, the internet. Those were the engines behind the change.
But isn't the word revolution thrown around all the time when it comes to tech? What made this a real revolution in Van Dyke's view? Is it just about everything being faster?
No, it's not just speed. Van Dyke says there were two distinct communication revolutions in the modern age. It wasn't just a quantitative speed-up. It was a structural shift in how we communicate using media.
Okay, that's interesting. So what was the first revolution?
The first one, late 19th to early 20th century, was about transferring sound, text, and images over long distances but using separate channels. Think telegraph, telephone, early radio, and TV.
Got it. So it was about extending communication across distance. But the second revolution, the digital one, feels different. What were the key changes there?
The second revolution came in the late 20th and early 21st century. It introduced digital technologies, digital memory, transmission, and reproduction. Everything became ones and zeros.
So that's when things really shifted. It wasn't just faster or more, it was completely different.
Exactly. The digital nature of information fundamentally changed everything. Instant copying, global reach. It didn't just affect communication, it had a huge impact on economics, privacy, and so much more.
That's huge. So by the early 2000s, the view started to become more balanced, moving past those utopian or dystopian predictions we heard in the 90s.
Right. People started looking at things more realistically based on facts and research. That's where Van Dyke's book really comes into play. It explores the deeper societal implications of this shift.
So it's about more than just technology. It's about the impact on society, the values we hold, like social equality, democracy, freedom versus control, privacy.
Exactly. And one of the key concepts in Van Dyke's framework is the idea of networks. When he talks about networks, what's the core idea?
At its most basic level, a network is a collection of links between different elements, nodes. These could be people, computers, organizations, anything. And all these nodes form a larger system.
Right. It's a way of organizing complexity. And this idea of networks isn't new. It's something you can see everywhere in nature. DNA is a network, so are our social interactions.
That's wild. It's almost like the universe operates in networks. So, what were the key tech breakthroughs that made this digital nervous system possible?
The biggest breakthrough, arguably, was microelectronics. It led to miniaturization and the exponential increase in chip capacity, what we call Moore's Law.
Ah, that's the doubling of processing power every 2 years, right?
Yep. And it didn't just make PCs faster. It enabled the computerization of phone networks, decentralization of processing power, and gave us the uniform microelectronics tech across telecommunication, data, and mass media.
So all of that improved speed, storage, accuracy, basically everything.
Exactly. Those breakthroughs paved the way for everything we take for granted today. Instant communication, massive data storage, and so on.
And it all goes back to this interconnected world we're living in now. It's a total game changer.
Yeah, a game changer that's still evolving.
Okay, Moore's Law kick-started it, but you needed a common language for all this information, right? That's where digitalization comes in.
Absolutely critical. Digitalization, that universal language of ones and zeros for all signals. Unlike the old analog signals, which could be, realistic, but also prone to noise and degradation.
Right? Like a fuzzy radio station.
Exactly. Digital is fast, relatively interference-free, and super easy for computers to process. And its adoption wasn't just because it was technically better, it was driven by the sheer need to integrate the explosive growth in data communication.
And getting all those ones and zeros flying around the globe. Needed new pipes, essentially.
Precisely. Huge improvements in connections, both wired, think fiber optic cables replacing old copper, and wireless, using higher frequencies for satellite broadcasting, laser infrared for broadband and wireless.
Faster speeds, wider reach, significantly better speed and geographical reach. And these pieces didn't just exist separately. On Dijk emphasizes their convergence. How did that merging change things?
Convergence is really the ultimate technical foundation he talks about. It's the merging of telecommunications, data communications, and mass communications into one single digital infrastructure.
Creating that nervous system.
His term? Yeah, a tangible nervous system for society. And that's what gives you the choice, the ability to do more and more things. Work, education, getting info, entertainment, either online or offline, or increasingly a mix of both.
We see that constantly now. I mean, look at your smartphone.
Perfect example. Mobile phones went from those clunky analog car phones to digital generations like GSM, GPRS. And it wasn't just clearer calls, it meant faster data, SMS, MMS, early mobile internet.
Plus all those features like caller ID, voicemail.
Exactly. Automatic callback, call waiting, voicemail. They became standard, fundamentally changed how we use phones, blurred the lines between a voice call and a data exchange.
And moving beyond personal devices. How did this network boom change how businesses operate?
Oh, massively. Data networks became the absolute backbone. You had wide area networks, WANs, connecting offices across countries, globally even, and local area networks, LANs, for internal connections.
And moving all that data required new tricks.
Yeah, techniques like packet switching. Imagine breaking a big file into tiny pieces, sending them maybe different routes, and reassembling them at the other end. That was crucial for the kind of real-time data flow we expect now.
Which led to battles over standards.
Oh yes, big competition between different technical standards like ATM and the Internet's TCP/IP, often driven by major corporate interests wanting their standard to win.
What about old-school mass communication?
TV, radio, how do they get pulled in? Well, traditionally broadcasting used airwaves, right? Then a lot moved to cable, but then deregulation and powerful satellites actually brought a comeback for antennas and satellite dishes. The key shift, though, was moving from those centralized one-way distribution networks like a tree branching out towards more interactive, potentially two-way systems.
So not just passively receiving.
Right, the potential for interaction increased significantly.
And this led to more integrated networks overall.
Exactly. An early attempt was ISDN, Integrated Services Digital Network, trying to merge voice and data. Then came digital satellites beaming down hundreds of channels. Things like datacasting and set-top boxes started turning TVs into somewhat interactive devices.
Within organizations.
We saw the rise of intranets, basically private internal internets for companies, and extranets, which allowed secure communication between different companies like suppliers and partners.
And finally, the big one, multimedia.
Yeah, multimedia. Something we totally take for granted now, but it was a revolutionary step then.
What defined it?
It was the integration of all the different data types, sound, text, data, images, combined with much higher user interactivity and control. Think multimedia PCs, CDs, DVDs for storage, and then portable devices, PDAs, early smartphones. They became multimedia in a nutshell.
Really cementing that nervous system idea.
Absolutely. A system that you, as someone in higher education, are deeply, deeply embedded in, whether you always realize it or not.
Okay, so we have this incredibly sophisticated technical nervous system. How did the economy itself change? One Dijk talks about scale being both extended and reduced. This global idea.
Yeah, global. It's a neat term capturing that paradox. We can operate globally but also hyper-locally, often at the same time, transcending old limits of time and place. But he also warns against some common, maybe overly simplistic views of networks.
Like what?
Well, the idea that they're automatically flat or inherently democratic, transparent, open, accessible, or that they somehow make physical location irrelevant. He argues these views are often quite one-sided.
Right? Networks aren't magic equality machines. So how did production change that shift from mass production, Fordism?
With post-Fordism. Yeah, moving from just-in-case mass production to just-in-time flexible specialization. This demanded constant improvement, quality circles, much more direct communication between different production groups, and media networks became absolutely indispensable for things like computer-integrated manufacturing.
The flow economy.
That's the concept prioritizing speed, adaptability, real-time information flows over rigidity. And this directly shapes the global supply chains and business models that, someone studying business or economics at a master's level would be analyzing constantly.
And offices got a dose of this too. You mentioned Taylorism, scientific management coming to white-collar work.
It did, in a way. ICT enabled workflow automation, breaking down administrative tasks into networked steps, kind of extending the assembly line concept mentally, at least beyond the factory floor.
Does that mean total standardization?
Not necessarily. While it formalized things, it also allowed for team-based tools, groupware, what we now call computer-supported collaborative work, CSCW. And IT didn't eliminate the need for complex informal stuff like interpreting information, making judgments for you, entering the modern workforce. It just highlights how even knowledge work is increasingly structured by these networks, demanding new skills and collaboration and navigating these systems.
And knowledge itself became something to be managed.
Yes, knowledge management became a huge buzzword because knowledge production is often dynamic. Informal organizations started using ICT networks, CSCW, online learning communities, trying to capture that tacit professional knowledge, make it explicit, shareable.
But that relies on people sharing.
Exactly. Requires employee cooperation, which can be tricky, especially with more flexible, maybe less secure jobs. It's a tension you'll see in almost any organization you study. The formal systems versus the informal knowledge flow.
What about virtual organizations? Did they live up to the hype of being totally free from time and place?
Well, a virtual organization is defined as one predominantly based on ICT, trying to work relatively independently of those constraints: time, place, physical conditions. The big question one Dijk raises is about their sustainability.
Do they last?
His argument, based on early evidence, was that they tend to succeed when the virtual methods add to traditional ways rather than completely replacing them. Physical reality, the hardware, but also human bodies, human minds, remains crucial. You can't just virtualize everything completely. It's a key lesson about the limits.
So, it's augmentation, not replacement. How do networks fit into the bigger picture compared to, say, markets or traditional hierarchies?
Walter Powell's comparison is really useful here. He saw networks as combining elements of both centralization and decentralization. They allow for horizontal coordination, teams working together, but also vertical control.
ICTs really empower top management to expand their reach, right?
Exactly. They allow management to control more with fewer middle layers, using real-time data from local operations. It's about shifting focus from just oversight to fostering learning across the organization.
That must be crucial for students, especially those studying adaptability and continuous learning.
Definitely. As networks evolve, the ability to self-organize and keep learning becomes central in a fast-changing world.
Right. And information itself seems to work differently in today's interconnected world.
Absolutely. It's no longer just about sharing facts. It behaves like an economic good. You see platforms thriving because of this.
So what makes information so unique in this networked economy?
First, it's non-rivalrous. If I share information, I don't lose it. Plus, it's an experience good. You need to try it to understand its value.
Right. And then there's the issue of lock-in, like how once you pick a system, it's tough to switch.
Exactly. That's because of high switching costs, learning new systems, replacing tools. This fuels competition and creates dominant players.
And then, of course, network effects. More users, more value.
Yes. The more people use it, the more valuable it becomes. That's why companies race to build their user base.
But with all these advantages, what about the vulnerabilities? If the system is like the nervous system, what happens if it glitches?
Fragility is a real concern. As systems grow, complexity increases, and failure becomes harder to trace.
Complexity, that's a huge issue.
It is. Also, we're becoming overly dependent on specialists to maintain these systems. If something goes wrong, it's a massive risk.
And then there's the issue of old tech being abandoned.
Exactly. As new tech takes over, old knowledge disappears. Recovering from failures becomes harder and costlier.
So, security measures can sometimes make things worse.
Yup. Adding security layers can actually reduce flexibility or conflict with values like openness or privacy.
Privacy is a huge issue today.
It is. And there's a distinction to be made between privacy, your freedom over personal info, and personal autonomy, which is about controlling how you use ICTs.
How is our privacy under threat today?
There are three main threats: traceability, central control, and data intelligence. Every online action leaves a footprint, and companies are connecting the dots to build detailed profiles.
So we're leaving digital breadcrumbs everywhere, often without knowing?
Exactly. And then there's central control, corporations or governments controlling massive databases of personal data.
And data intelligence?
That's where they pull together information from all kinds of sources to make decisions about loans, insurance, even predicting behavior. It's like integrating everything about you.
So we're becoming more transparent, often without realizing it. Does the law even keep up with this?
Not really. Network technologies outpace the law, especially since online activities can be hard to trace. Different countries have different regulations too.
And control is shifting from laws to something else. Code?
Yes, that's what Lawrence Lessig talks about. The technology itself, like how a platform designs its interface, is becoming a form of regulation.
So the very tech we use is setting the rules.
Exactly. The rules are no longer just in the legal text, they're embedded in the code we use every day.
And privacy law? Is it effective?
Not really. Privacy laws are fragmented, and they often focus more on informational privacy than relational or physical privacy.
What about tech fixes like encryption?
They help, but they're a double-edged sword. Encryption protects privacy, but it can also be used by criminals. It's not a simple solution.
It sounds like protecting privacy is a multifaceted issue.
It definitely is. It requires a combination of legal protections, tech tools, and self-regulation by industries.
Shifting gears a bit, what about the social and cultural changes? Giddens talked about how time and space are stretched. Does that mean distance is dead?
Giddens pointed out that networks stretch our social lives across time and space. But one Dijk argues that time and space still matter. They just work differently now.
So we're still affected by geography and timing, just in new ways?
Exactly. For example, global markets operate 24/7, and logistics are more strategic. We still navigate distance, but we do it in a more selective, strategic way.
And the shift to more home-centered lifestyles?
Yes, smaller households, bigger homes, and more activities centered around the home. But even remote work relies on infrastructure, hardware, and external centers.
So the digital world still relies on physical spaces and connections?
Absolutely. Even with all the digital conveniences, the foundation is still tied to physical infrastructure.
Speaking of teleactivities like telework and telestudy, what did the early research show? We've seen a massive boom recently, but what were the initial lessons?
Well, the advantages were clear even then. Less travel, more flexible scheduling, maybe easier to combine work or study with family life. But the downsides were significant too. For routine tasks, sometimes poor working conditions, difficulty separating work or study from home life, a lack of spontaneous social interaction, reduced mobility sometimes, and crucially, for complex tasks requiring nuanced communication, the quality could suffer.
So not a magic bullet.
Definitely not. The conclusion back then, which still seems relevant, was that teleactivities would likely supplement traditional ways of working and studying, not completely dominate them. That's a key insight for master students weighing hybrid options today.
How about our media consumption? Our new media just replacing the old. It's more of a partial and gradual replacement.
The internet, computers, mobile phones definitely took time away from print, radio, maybe even some face-to-face, especially for younger people. But the bigger shift was multifunctionality.
One device doing many things.
Exactly. TV became an information source, radio background noise, phones used for info and games. And that computer became this universal device. And the internet, of course, is the ultimate multifunctional medium, pulling everything together.
And hyperlinks changed how we read, how we learn. Associative learning.
Yeah, hyperlinks definitely disrupt linear reading. They support associative learning, jumping between related ideas, exploring tangents. They offer this incredible abundance of sources. But, and it's a big but, it requires really high-level information skills.
To avoid getting lost.
To avoid getting lost in the noise. Yeah. To evaluate sources, synthesize information, it demands a different kind of literacy, one that anyone in advanced studies absolutely has to cultivate.
It's right back to information overload. Van Dijk's pyramid of knowledge seems relevant here.
Very relevant. He lays out this pyramid. Starts with raw bits and bytes at the bottom, then data, then information, knowledge, and finally wisdom at the top. His point, which is crucial for anyone pursuing deep understanding, is that we're creating vast, vast amounts of data and information. But the truly valuable knowledge, and especially wisdom needed to handle society's complexity, that's still scary.
Quantity over quality often.
Yeah, it's communication overload. We're always reachable, bombarded with messages, much of it redundant. Technical fixes like filters and agents can help, but they also risk creating filter bubbles, narrowing our view.
And what about communities? Virtual versus real.
While organic communities built on face-to-face contact tend to be pretty stable, virtual communities are often based on shared interests. Looser ties, easier to join, easier to leave. One Dijk noted that despite seeming to transcend place, they're still influenced by offline reality, and, maybe surprisingly, they often require more conscious organization than face-to-face groups.
Why more organization?
Partly to compensate for the lack of nonverbal cues. Think about the use of emoticons, careful wording in emails, the asynchronous nature allowing time to craft responses.
And the internet's overall effect on sociability. Did it make us loners?
That was an early fear, yeah, the lonely nerd stereotype. But later research often showed the opposite, that the internet could actually increase social capital, helping maintain ties with distant friends, family, even connecting with local people who share interests. It often complements and strengthens offline relationships rather than replacing them.
Leading to network individualization.
That's his term. It means individuals have more agency to select and build their own social networks, less constrained by just who happens to be nearby physically. For you as a student, this means potentially broader, more diverse, more self-curated professional and social connections.
A powerful shift. Yeah. What about deeper effects on our personalities, how we perceive the world? Does staring at screens change our brains?
Well, new media definitely continued that historical shift away from purely direct first-hand experience towards mediated perception. We learn less by doing, perhaps, and more through visual models, symbols, text. Multimedia can appeal to both brain hemispheres, potentially fostering holistic development, visual, auditory, verbal, logical skills.
But there's a catch.
The catch is that these powerful tools don't have to be used optimally. You can skim, click shallowly, multitask distractedly, which might actually hinder the development of deep focus and critical thinking skills.
And interacting with computers. What does that do?
It highlights similarities. Both humans and computers process info, but also huge differences. Computers are context-free, rigidly programmed. Their learning is artificial, without emotion or willpower. This can lead to communication breakdowns, our human flexibility clashing with the machine's rigidity.
Could it change us long-term?
Van Dijk speculates about that. Could constantly interacting with logical, context-free machines make us more rigid, maybe less sympathetic? Could we start defining ourselves in relation to computers, or replace spontaneous human encounters with purely pragmatic, rationalized online interactions? These are big, open questions about the long-term psychological impact.
Okay, given all this, the opportunity is the challenge of the profound changes. What does it mean for knowledge and learning, especially for you, our listener in higher education?
What are the upsides of new media for learning? The potential is enormous. Interactivity, integration. They offer ways to make learning more active, more independent. Simulating and active learning. Learning by doing through simulations, virtual labs, combining different modes, doing, seeing, reading. Teachers can shift towards being guides, tutors, facilitators.
And that associative learning aspect.
Yes, hypertext and hypermedia are powerful tools for that. Connecting ideas, exploring vast resources beyond the single textbook. It offers incredible richness.
Sounds great, but are universities actually doing this effectively?
Well, back in 2005, Van Dijk argued these opportunities were barely being tapped. Why? Because it requires huge effort developing entirely new course materials, doing serious research into the didactics and psychology of digital learning, and massive retraining for educators. The tech might be there, but the pedagogical and institutional change that takes time still feels relevant today, doesn't it?
It certainly does. What about using things like online forums, collaborative tools, CMC, in education?
Computer-mediated communication? Yeah, it's obviously very reliant on the tech working smoothly, which can be a vulnerability. Early hopes were that it might level the playing field in discussions, reduce status effects, but later studies looking at real-world use in organizations and education often found it could actually reinforce existing hierarchies.
How so?
often due to unequal access or usability skills, or simply because the existing offline power structures and rules got replicated in the online space. It's a good reminder technology doesn't automatically fix social inequality.
So pulling it all together for our listener, the master student, what is the absolute key takeaway from Van Dijk's analysis? For them.
It really hammers home the critical, non-negotiable importance of digital skills. And it's way beyond just having access, motivational access, wanting to use it, material access, having the device, physical access, the connection you need, the skills, operational, how to use the tools, informational, how to find, vet, and use information effectively. And crucially, strategic, how to leverage these tools to achieve your specific goals, academic or professional. And then usage, actually applying it all effectively. That full package is vital for full participation, for succeeding in the knowledge economy.
Which brings us to the digital divide. It's not just about owning a laptop anymore, is it?
Not at all. That's a crucial point. The divide is increasingly about usage gaps, significant differences in how people use technology and, critically, what value they derive from it. Van Dijk warned these gaps were likely to widen, creating an information elite and reinforcing the Matthew effect. The rich get richer, those with advantages gain more. It risks creating, as he put it, first, second, and third-class citizens, consumers, workers, students, and community members. For you, recognizing this means consciously working to build those higher-level strategic skills, ensuring you're not just a consumer of information, but a creator and innovator.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. This deep dive into Van Dijk's network society. It really paints a picture of a complex dual system, doesn't it? Extension and reduction, centralization and decentralization, impacting pretty much every aspect of our lives. Economy, politics, society, culture, even our own minds.
Absolutely. And the core takeaway has to be that these networks, they are not neutral tools. They are incredibly powerful systems. They shape power dynamics in society and organizations, between individuals, and they're shaped by those dynamics. In return for you, someone navigating higher education, preparing for a complex future, understanding this is just essential.
It's about seeing how crucial those digital skills and effective usage are for your own success.
Yes, and for avoiding being left behind in those widening usage gaps. It's about mastering the tools, not just having access to them.